looking at how we can leverage these tools to be able to energize and make them more efficient what they're doing so that they can be more involved with the guests. So no further ado, I am going to allow my guests to introduce themselves, and we are going to get started, not to my left, but to my far left, to Christina.
I currently am assisting my father, the CEO of Abrazo Fuerte Bakery, in the expansion of what they created, not just 1, 2, or 3 generations down. So yes, we're older. We've been around longer than the modern internet, TCP/IP. So we are now thinking about, expanding and how do we preserve tradition and how do we really lean on preserving those roots while still being able to provide seamless service and provide quality products and really just kind of nurture and curate that relationship and connection that hospitality is really about. And so I'm honored to be here and be serving on this panel with 2 industry icons and to learn and to bring back and really educate these family members that are a little bit more hesitant on expansion and really leaning into AI and the systems that we've actually started working on. And overall, I'm here to learn, educate, and experience hospitality with everyone.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Carlos Gazatua. I am CEO for Sergio's Family Restaurants. We are celebrating 50 years on October 1st, so I'm 3rd generation. A lot of people don't know it. We're a woman-based organization. My grandmother and my mom are the ones that started Sergio's. And when we took over the little sandwich shop in Westchester off 92nd, there were a lot of Latin women opening and running restaurants. So Sergio's had come and gone many times when we kept the name Sergio's because you could say it in Italian, Spanish, English. We're still friends with Frankie's Pizza and Arbetters, and there was a lot of Italians in Westchester back then because a lot of the Latins were actually by Calle Ocho, and not all the way in what we call horse country, where this all used to be farmland here in this area. But I'm 3rd generation running our business. I'm also the past chair and president for the Florida Restaurant Lodging Association, for the FRLA, so I deal with all hotels and restaurants in Dade County and the state of Florida. And I'm also part of Job Creators Network as well, dealing with legislative policies and anything regarding small businesses in America.
Fantastic, thank you. And so thank you again for the opportunity. My name is Jorge Rodriguez. I am a class of 91 graduate from the School of Hospitality. Yeah. Thank you. For those of you who don't know, I am a sunblazer. Everybody's like, what the hell's a sunblazer? All right, there you go. That was our official mascot back then, and many of you have no clue what that is. But to give you a little bit about my background, born and raised Miami. I've been very fortunate to hold global roles based out of Miami. I have worked for Burger King, Bacardi, Stanley Black & Decker, McDonald's, and most recently Subway. I am the former president of Latin America for Subway. I just recently retired. And I also wanted to share with you that I have had 30 years in transformation experience, starting from my first job when I worked at Deloitte & Touche. I am an MBA CPA, where I actually helped them change from an analog system of carrying book and 18-column paper, which many of you have no idea what that is, into actually using Excel. And I've been from analog to digital, and now I'm doing digital to AI. So I'm very excited to give you actual real examples. I think we had some great panels earlier, but for those of you who are gonna not hear, you let them know they missed out on real case scenarios that I would love to share with you of how we did this, okay? Thank you.
Awesome, thank you. So Christina, when you got started with your family's bakery, you really wanted to integrate AI customer facing, but you had an interesting demographic to overcome. So talk to us about that challenge and what that lesson learned can be acknowledged with the audience here.
So a little bit of backstory. I took a little bit of a hiatus, a 5-year hiatus, to teach at the hospitality school. And in case you missed it, the Chaplin School of Hospitality and Tourism Management. And during that time, as an adjunct professor, we were introduced to Cecilia AI. And Cecilia AI, when we received her in 2022, we were dealing with post-pandemic issues. We were in a labor shortage crisis. And here's this tool, this amazing looking, almost arcade machine that's supposed to be and created for efficiency, to actually take off a little bit of the pressure of our F&B managers who are having to go behind the bar and having to do, the toilet scrubbing and everything other than their jobs. And so we were told, what and how can you evolve this traditional AI back then into something that could really help our industry when it comes to this labor shortage situation that we were facing. And so we not only taught her Spanglish, which has been great for the South Florida community, but we were actually able to grow her and evolve her into from a 2-year-old to an 11-year-old with her conversational AI skills and the new generative AI model that she was able to implement. And so while she was busy doing the rum and cokes and telling the interesting dad jokes, we were really able to focus on making the connection with all of our consumers and guests and really have that meaningful interaction without having that 5 deep stress of not getting to everybody on time. And so when I realized that she was here to really enhance and supplement that gap that we had, I decided to go ahead and step aside from teaching, pursue touring the nation with her, and actually partner with Lavazza and see how we can tell the story of origin of the coffee farmer, and how that kind of all ties together to our modern day consumption of coffee, and be able to still push our product and introduce a new product to not just South Florida when it comes to cold brew and cold coffees, when we're used to La Colada and even the red eyes, things like that. And so I brought her into the bakery. Going back to your question, Suzanne, let's fast forward to this year that now I had to say goodbye to her because she's fully grown and she's moving on. It was very difficult to part ways with her, but I did get an opportunity to take her to the bakery and see how the consumer with forward-facing AI would react to her. And with our demographic and our client base, it didn't go very well. There was a lot of, que es esto, and, where's the abuelitas? And, so it was really, we realized, okay, yes, the learning curve is interesting, and even though her Spanglish is on point, I really can't get her to replace the abuelitas and that guided tour of how we make things and why this might taste better than that, and how we don't sell anything gluten-free, and just things like that. But I told my dad and my grandparents, I'm like, listen, guys, we can't do it consumer forward-facing, but let's implement the AI systems on the back end. Let's look into, recipe bot AI. We have all these perishable ingredients, raw ingredients that we're not using, and what if, we can actually do something about it, have the AI come up with the actual recipe, and move the inventory that's stuck, because it's all money, and keep going. And so we were able to focus more on back end, not forward facing, and it's been working great. Abuelita, is a little more comfortable with knowing that the AI, the machine's on the back end. She doesn't think it's gonna pop up on her phone or anything like that. And the customer's also there for tradition, and they want to have that experience. They want to walk into nostalgia. And so we were able to find, and we're still working on that balance of, what it is to have AI systems in place, whether we want it to be forward-facing for the consumer, do we want it to be on the back end? And so for us, Suzanne, it's worked out so much better in the back end. I know for Carlos and his R2D2s on steroids, it's been great for him, but our demographics weren't ready to really embrace that amazing, wonderful machine that I brought in. But hey, there's gonna be generations that are gonna come in, and that will even itself out. But as far as there's other systems we'll go into later, but for me, that was the initial experience coming into this year, now that I'm back from my hiatus and touring with Cecilia AI and understanding that location matters. And it's been great.
Awesome, thank you. Now, Carlos, you went the opposite direction, and especially after COVID, you really looked at integrating robots to be able to provide support. And so, how have you now changed the perception and the interaction that your customers have and continue to expect from your restaurant experiences?
Yeah, when I first implemented robotics during COVID, we had CNN, Fox Business, I was on Neil Cavuto, and Only in Dade came in and said, I'm taking away all the jobs in Dade County. So we got all the news coming in to look at our restaurants. And the negativity ended up turning to positivity because they were able to see that the robots, which we still have today, 4 or 5 years after COVID, was to help the servers really become more efficient in going and getting the food and bringing it to the table. So we kept the servers on the floor because service is so important and it's so hard to do here in South Florida. So we wanted to make sure it's like, how do we create a competitive advantage? If I can get my server to take 4 or 5 tables, I just automatically gave them a raise. Every table is like selling real estate for a server. So if I can have more tables to sell within every turn, then I've automatically just given you an incentive to make more money. Now, I can tell you, I've yet to see a customer say, how fast is your server's 40 dash to get my food and come back? No customer really cares how fast your server is in running. What they care about is that they're being served, the table is being manicured, they're upselling, they're making sure that the customer experience is great. And so that's where technology helps us say, how do we implement that better experience? So we implemented that, and the robotics have been great, and we're still using it. We're about to open up a Pinecrest store in end of October, and we'll have our robot there as well. But we're also now implementing with AI, is okay, how do we continue to double down on the customer experience? As a CEO, you have to think of what's the best ROI. We can go back end, so I think it's a little easier. I've been focusing a little bit more on, can my customer experience be better to differentiate ourselves between others? Because unfortunately, I can go ahead and put a back AI system, but the customer's never really gonna know, nor do they care about my inventory turns as well. What they care about is the experience, or am I getting a better output when I go to your store? And so now what we've done is we've implemented AI on telephones. And so we do a lot of delivery, and people call us all the time to our restaurants. We're doing about close to, I believe it's 20,000 phone calls in the month that we take on. So before, we had no KPIs to really understand when someone calls, was my training sufficient? Were we talking to the customer with the right empathy or with the right inflections? Were we upselling? More importantly, if through AI, if I hear the word manager, complaint, issue, and you can track keywords, and those automatically get flagged, and that recording then gets automatically sent to our managers on duty or off duty, that there's an issue right now. You're off duty, but you're getting a text automatically sent to your email and saying, store in Pinecrest has an issue with a delivery. Well, how will the customer feel when I try to handle the issue at the store, but then my catering manager calls you within an hour, let's just say, and say, was the issue resolved? Was it taken care of? Now you're going to think, these people, they know what they're doing. They're on the ball. They understand customer service. So the customer, through technology, has, believe it or not, I would say less patience, because technology has created us an ability to want everything now and faster. And so what we hope AI will do for us is figure out ways that we can reach that customer and their expectations, but do it in a way that we always drive hospitality in mind.
Great, thank you. So Jorge, reflecting back to, let's say, Subway and McDonald's, and the AI focus to speed the processes up through the drive-through, and really being able to personalize that experience on a global front, how has AI tools supported the teams to be able to do that?
That's a great question. So McDonald's probably was one of the most forefront companies in artificial intelligence. So I've been removed from McDonald's now over 4 years, and started there about 9 years ago. And when I started, and this is all public, so thank God I can share this, so my non-compete doesn't come after me. The good news is they actually purchased 2 companies. They purchased an app company I want to say it was out of New Zealand, and then they purchased another company out of Israel that specialized back then at the beginning of AI. So AI's been around a lot longer than people realize. It's taken this long to get there. They were specialists in machine learning. And so the whole goal of personalizing that experience, and what you heard here in the two examples is actually focused on their consumer, their customer. And for those of you who are venturing this, I know you've heard in the prior panels, you heard ROI, figure out, crawl, walk, run, small task, improve them. McDonald's was, their goal, and still is today, is that if you download that app, you break that geofence, which is around every single one of their restaurants, and that phone and that app is open, the moment you come to that drive-thru, the moment you break that barrier and go into their storefront, that app or that screen that you're ordering on is going to say, hello, Jorge, welcome back. I saw that you ordered your Big Mac with extra cheese and your supersized large fries and your supersized large Coke. Would you like to throw a dietetic ice cream on top of it, right? Right? And what's the premise there? The premise is to give you such a personalization, right, that you feel like you're at home and that you buy one more item. It's always about getting one more additional thing into the sale. Just like Sergio's doing it to create that expectation that they're having a great time and say, you know what? I am going to get that dessert. Their flan is delicious, by the way. And then I am going to get that cafecito at the end. And you start adding it because all this is a business. It's all about increasing revenues and having a great experience. And so that's what the McDonald's journey is on. I think the challenge for you all is you're large companies, medium companies, small companies, and you have two great examples here for those of you who are in other industries. You need to figure out how much money you're willing to gamble, because it is a little bit of a gamble. And by the way, having done it with budgets of 50 million, a million, and 50,000, you need to really think through how you're going to invest that money to prove the model out, and then take that gamble that you're going to invest, whether it be taking the back of the house, which is a great example, making your back of the house more efficient, understanding if your food cost is too high, what are your slow movers, and having an AI do that for you so you can not buy things and save money there, or giving a great customer service experience where people feel at home and always want to come back and say, hey, I want to go out to dinner tonight. Sergio is always top of mind. And that's what the industry with a lot of these QSRs are doing today.
That's great. Good perspective. So, quick question. How do you balance technology and the human touch? Go, Carlos.
I like to think of it, technology and human touch is, can technology be an assistant for the functional side of the work for the human? If it is, then it check boxes us to start having a dialogue in that conversation. Because we do a lot of mundane things in the restaurant, right? Whether it's rolling up napkins or doing the same prep work or cleaning the floors. There's things that sometimes the customer really doesn't appreciate or feel because it's not part of their customer journey. It's part of the experience, but it's not part of the customer journey of why I'm coming in with my family. They want to be able to spend time and look their kids in the eyes and have a conversation and create some kind of bond. So the question for us is how can we look at technology and make it easier for them? Obviously, everyone has labor constraints as well, right? So every business has labor constraints. When things go busy or slower, we have to figure out, can technology help us during those busy times be able to interact with the guests? So these are the kind of things that we look at and say, does this get us closer to that hospitality experience? Because guess what? If I have a better hospitality experience at my restaurants, I have a better brand equity. And the number one thing McDonald's does amazing is when you compare McDonald's to other fast casuals or QSRs, they're called in quick service environments, it's all about the perspective mind of that consumer saying, I trust McDonald's, I'm willing to pay a little bit more because of McDonald's because I know they're consistent in what they do. And so when we do stuff for the restaurants is, am I giving you more brand equity in your mind that I can price up a little higher that price point, right? Whether maybe it's a better ingredient that I can add in. Because sometimes when you think about Cuban food, you think of, oh, it has to be affordable and we can't, well, if I portions. And if I say, well, I don't want to go with that big of a portion, I want to add better quality to the ingredient, well, you can't do that, Carlos. I'm like the number one thing we have to always think about when you're running a business is, if I had all the money in the world, what would I want? Don't create a constraint already on me, because at the end of the day, you're taking away from the consumer. So what can we do, and how does it fit within a profile that we can see if the consumer wants it? And so therefore, how do we do that? You can't even get there without brand equity, because they won't trust you. They don't trust your culture. They don't trust what you're doing. They don't trust your ambiance and your experience. So AI can help you do this, but you always got to think about brand equity and the value of that consumer, because that gives you more opportunities to pay people more, give them opportunities to move up, because again, to survive, it's about value, but it's also about being able to price yourself to get the talent that you want around your business.
Absolutely, I agree. And so for what I realized and our team realized, my grandparents and the family, is that the buy-in really starts with your employee, your team. They need to buy into the AI. They need to understand that the AI is there to supplement, to enhance, not just the guest experience, but also their work ethic, drive their passion, incentivize them, because really that's the connection between the product and the consumer. And so if we're not enabling, we're not empowering our teams to feel more comfortable, to better understand the AI, to help them understand it's not gonna, stalk them on their cell phone and just pop up randomly and follow them home, but instead it's going to actually give them more of a relaxed feeling to be themselves, to be able to actually nurture and make those connections with those, not just regulars, but build more loyal customers by actually, harnessing that connection with that time that the AI now, the system in place has given them. That's key, because the consumer experience is going to really depend on the employee's ability to work well with that AI. So for me, for example, I know something that was always catching our team off guard was the nutritional macronutrient allergen aspect of everything, because nowadays everyone's very well in tune with their diets, and a lot of dietary restrictions are popping up here and there, and so we're not doing a great job at contributing because we have no gluten-free. But I tell my parents that all the time, like, we really should, but that's a whole other subject. But at the end of the day, Nutritix, which is also another system that I was looking into and testing to a certain extent, gives us that ability, and our abuelitas an understanding of what macronutrients are, what we're looking at in terms of calories, how can we help our consumers with more transparency. And so that bridge, that gap, Suzanne, is so important, because if we don't invest in our teams, in their comfort levels and how they feel the culture, right, the workplace culture, then really you can have the best AI in the world, but implementation is going to be pretty hard, and then that's going to affect everything else. It just trickles down.
For sure. Did you have anything else that you wanted to add to that one? Or can I get right into the back end?
Let's go in the back end. Let's go to the back end.
I'm excited.
Okay, so we've definitely started from the front end with the customer service experience. We want to take a look at the back end of things. So from the QSR standpoint, what are some of those efficiencies that are put into place that are being implemented now?
So I'll give you two great examples. Number one, labor scheduling. Absolutely. There are now very robust tools, not just for QSR, but anybody that has to schedule labor, whether it be a manufacturing plant, whether it be a restaurant, whether it be a hotel. The AI is helping analyze from a manual's perspective, right? You've got this planning process, which is called SNOP, which is sales and operational plan. So you got to figure out how much you're going to sell, how much you're going to produce, so you can have it in inventory, and then how many people you need to produce that inventory. And so a lot of these AIs are now looking at labor scheduling and coming up with a very high accuracy rate of getting it right. Another area is finance, and I'll give you a great example, and I won't mention the company, but we had this individual who was very talented at forecasting, but it was one individual in this multi-million-dollar company. And you basically couldn't send them on vacation because it's a public company. And if the forecast is wrong, right, we all are earning stock options and we all want to sell our stock options very high. And if you miss a Wall Street expectation and your stocks go down and you as a director or vice president, you're not very happy, I can tell you. So we had this really bright person who was really good at all these, basically running these algorithms in his head based on what we were seeing in the landscape. So he would get his forecasts around 93, 94% accurate every month. What did we do? We said, hey, we need a backup. So we actually ran a pilot. We brought in an AI. We now did that. We started with 6 attributes. We increased it to 8 attributes. And by the way, this is worldwide for 20 countries that amounted to 80% of the company's revenue, okay? And we were able to build over a 6-month period, trial and error, educating the AI, and you're absolutely right. You literally are educating them. You're giving them the logic, the algorithm, and they do adapt. The next time around, they go adjusting. One great example is weather. We gave them prior weather trends, and as you know, weather is changing, climate is changing, and so we had to constantly go back and go into weather to adjust the weather piece because of the changes in that. By the time we were done, that algorithm, or that AI, was 97% accurate in the forecast. And so what his job then was, he wasn't fired, by the way. I know everybody believes that it's going to replace everyone. That's all, those are all the news channels. They got to get ratings. It actually made him a much better forecaster. He used that tool to really tweak it. Now the goal was, you're at 97. How can you get it to 99? And remember, Pareto's rule, it's going to take 80% of all your effort to get that last 20%, and that last 20% is really hard. I left. I never saw it get past that, but I can tell you that was one very happy company knowing that they had a backup that somebody could step into. And those are back of the house examples. And to give you an idea, that started with a simple $50,000 investment, and then it turned out to be a multi-million-dollar investment once we proved the concept. Okay?
That's great, thank you. So Carlos, you have definitely focused front of the house, and the opportunities abound yourself when it comes to the kitchen and how you can leverage that in that space. So what is the next thought about how you might start integrating more there?
Well, we're currently also looking at right now for AI to make sure that when someone orders events, parties, catering is a big opportunity for restaurants. And I feel a lot of restaurants don't take an opportunity because they're running the restaurant. They don't have to deal with private events or private dining or going to your house and doing a big celebration. I think one is being able, which we are already, grabbing anyone's saying private events and parties, going to a catering manager to execute well and not lose those opportunities, because we can't expect everyone to go to Sergio's. I mean, you have a birthday, you have kids, you have a birthday party, you have events, you're busy, you go to soccer. So how we can always think about outdoor sales, I think, is an important aspect to sales. I also think that we're working on a few ideas of, and this is probably happens to every business, is what we call a telephone game. So if I say an idea, I put every 10 people in line. By the time that 10th person, 9th person tells the 10th person, what did Carlos just say? It's completely different to what I said. So how can AI help that? Well, one thing that we're working on now is that every one of our restaurants, we run a shift. And in that shift, there's like a 5-minute meeting. 5-minute meeting for front of the house, 5-minute meeting for the back of the house, right? And what do they do in these 5-minute meetings? Well, when you have operations that are not inside the office, you don't have your little huddles, your huddles, and the executives do, right? Well, they do shifts in the restaurants or construction because they're on the field. These little 5-minute meetings are supposed to be about what the goal is. Something's 86, there's an issue, we don't have an item.
When he says something is 86, it means we don't have an item. We've run out of it.
Run out of it. The server needs to know. They can't upsell that to the customer if we don't have it. It could be what we're training or working on that day, or what the company's working on that week. Something new, a new recipe that came out. Okay, we have meetings almost every week with our leadership team, pretty much every week, and every captain in our organization has that with their department. How do I know what my leader on the floor with a 5-minute meeting is actually communicating? Is he communicating with energy? Are they hope leaders? Are they providing a wow story or a line that we want them to say in terms of to motivation to get their team moving. The most important thing is data is what we're providing in these meetings, but data is only as good as how someone disseminates it and speaks to that human to convince them that this is their priority during their shift. And so the question is, and that's what we look at is, well, then we're going to record the 5-minute meetings. And we're going to have AI tell us, based off a model, if this person is actually leading and scorecard them to make sure that they're following the principles that we want to teach. Because at the end of the day, it's very frustrating for a leader to tell them, did they tell them about the new menu items and that it comes with bacon, and if someone doesn't like meat, that they can't order that Caesar salad, right? So these are small little details, but they make a big impact for the guest, right? So how we do that, that's what we're looking at in the future is record the conversations, 5 minutes, that eventually gets recorded, it gets scorecarded. The worst scorecards will get sent to our department heads for the organization, and then they'll listen to those meetings every day based off their department head. And then those are the opportunities to train and teach and be able to, and that's how we educate, because the more we see in the future with labor issues and stuff like that is how do we train soft skills, right? How do we know someone is actually leading on the front line? And I think that's where there's a huge opportunity, as much as recording and scorecarding and then giving suggestions, AI can do, because at the end of the day, it's a conversation. If it's the input that you're supposed to be providing, it's potential training where then leadership then looks a lot better because they're saying, yeah, my team is, I'm at a 75% accuracy on everyone talking. These are my 3 stores that I know that have issues. And I guarantee it, those who lead less in those shift meetings probably have more issues in their stores or have issues with sales.
Right.
There's probably a correlation there. That AI will then tell you there's a
There's something
correlation.
we can study for you. All right, so now we need to take a look at combining front of the house and back of the house and looking at it from integration and strategy. Christina, you've mentioned that you're looking to try and scale and add additional bakeries, which I think for many would really enjoy your product. So if you didn't have breakfast this morning, you really missed out today. But with that thought in mind, how are you trying to find ways to incorporate AI into that scalability strategy with your family?
I think our biggest challenge really is convincing our senior leadership, my wonderful grandparents, that quality control is something that can be possible, having multiple units and, expanding, just like Carlos is now opening his 9th. And so what we're trying to do and what I'm working on is figuring out what systems, and we're not looking for many systems because remember, there's that train the trainer concept. So we don't want too many systems in place. We really want to limit it and narrow it down to maybe 1 or 2 that can really be efficient and do everything that we need to do to run a tight ship and really be able to communicate consistency across the board. Now, the whole take on what we do is tradition, nostalgia, everything made by hand, no automation. And so that's why for us, back of house and even labor costs are so important. Our employees and our teams are really they're lifers in their positions. This is what they're going to do for the rest of their life. And so the revolving door isn't our issue per se currently in this one location, but what I need to really look into, like Carlos mentioned, is talent. And what does that talent look like, considering that I want to now dabble in systems that are going to maintain quality control with our commissary, our headquarters, and communicate everything back and forth. And what does the training look like as well? So I'm actually really glad that I've met Carlos and Jorge, and whatever they beta and whatever they work on, then hey, we're all part of the same community. But what I'm really looking for, Suzanne, is that happy balance of maintaining tradition, everything done by hand, but also streamlining while trying to cover back-end costs, because this economy, it's one way today and it could be another way tomorrow, and so we really need to scale. And like I said, Nutritix and Nutritics and RecipeBot AI and other AI recipe generators have really been helping me move stuck inventory, because we don't use preservatives and we don't really like putting any chemicals. Everything is homemade. We lose a lot. There's a lot of loss, a lot of waste, and so that narrowing down that management and then controlling our labor costs. I wish I could get and dabble into catering. That would be amazing. But the workforce that we would have to take on, the manpower, for that to be executed with so much care and with consistency, we don't have the resources right now to do that. But where we did narrow down profits for us would be in cakes, because, hey, wedding cakes are an art. Really, any cake is an art, and the profit margin is just out of this world, and it's really quite a blessing to focus on that. And so there are other AI recipe generators and AI bots that really help us with being able to create the dream custom cake for that, soon-to-be bride, or for that, quinceañera, and for all of these special events, including different religious cakes as well. And so there is a market. The market is willing to pay. And so what we've realized is that AI can help us replace in our traditional recipes, just make slight modifications where if there is a dietary restriction, we can still maintain flavor. We still have to test the product out, obviously texture is important, things like that. But now we have a Jarvis that can tell us, hey, you could still get this great taste, feel, smell, and look, and still meet that consumer demand and meet expectations and get to narrow in and maximize profit in that sector. And that's really where we see us coming up, and what we're focusing a lot of the AI systems and what we're testing AI on, and it's been working great. So my concept would focus more on that consumer being able to not just hear their names from that type of level of care, consumer and employee, connection, but also, consume edible imaging like their faces, and be able to really personalize their edibles and really make whatever experience that they're catering for, make it more personal, make it more engaging and more impactful, so that there is now an experience, a memory attached to that food, smell, and taste, and it just be like a whole 360 experience. So that's the goal.
Great, thank you. I still am betwixt over consuming someone's face.
It takes a little bit of practice,
It
yeah.
does. So, Jorge, as we start to wrap up this section, let's think globally, and let's put on the future hat that you might have when you create your own global brand after your non-compete. Where are you going to put your focus of AI on? Front of the house, back of the house, or both?
I think it's a balance, and I think, first of all, there's a great opportunity in front of the house. This new generation, for those of you who have to deal with them, they're all on their phones, they're very phone-centric, they're all cyberspace. There's a huge target there. Many of these companies, whether it be a medical company, whether it be a restaurant company, everything is geared to making that experience personalized. I was just talking to a doctor this past weekend where he's a small company, but he's investing money in AI to personalize that patient's experience. Number one, when they go to the office, they don't have to sign 58 pages again that they've signed the last time we're there. Everything's digitized, number one, so they walk in smooth. Number two, they don't want to have to waste time in the traditional visit, so they go in, and then now they're actually personalizing the treatment, whereas before it was a blanket treatment, and now you can get more information. So personalization, front of the house, hotels, restaurant, cruise ships. You're going to see this in the whole hospitality industry. It's going to be geared towards you, what you like, what you don't like, which means you're going to be sharing a lot of personal information, which you're just going to have to get used to that if you really want that great experience, so you get that TikTok moment. Back of the house, again, I think what's going to happen to a lot of areas in the back of house, HR, accounting, finance, legal, I think what the stuff that used to exist, paralegals, accounting clerks, all that is going to be digitized, and the AI will automatically do that. Those are the areas that will get impacted. However, I was having another conversation with somebody whose daughter just started at KPMG. She has a dual major. She's been educated in AI, and they're actually leveraging the AI in an audit to get rid of a lot of the clerical work and for her to be the interpretive decision maker. That is where the world is shifting. I was speaking to a gentleman who advises the House of Representatives on this topic, and he gave me a great fact. For those of you who are very concerned that jobs are going to go away, yes, some jobs are going to go away. But he brought up a good point. In today's economy, when you look at the percentage of the population that is employed or employable, this is the highest percentage of population that we have had employed per capita in the history of the United States. So if you go back 10 years, 20 years, it was just much smaller employed percentage per capita of the population. We have a lot of people employed. Is there a small shift? Absolutely. Are there going to be redundant jobs? Absolutely. And I think that's where the companies are really going to focus. They're going to want to make you, especially as students, to be more talented, more educated, more what I call jack of all trades. You can no longer be a finance expert. You're going to be a finance expert, an HR expert, a legal expert, because all that mundane stuff that we grew up with, the AI is going to handle for you. You're going to be a jack of all trades, and that's what they're looking for.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So at this point in time, I would love to open up the floor to questions that you may all have. And we have our volunteers with the microphones. We've got a gentleman over there. Thank you.
Thank you all for the presentation information. It's excellent. Questions for you. I'm a giant fan of Sergio's. My family grew up eating it. My youngest, when COVID ended, I remember going and seeing the white robots on Kendall Drive by Miami-Dade. I can't wait for that Pinecrest location, by the way. It's going to be great. And it was the thing she remembered. She didn't know Sergio's yet. She was still young. She knows what Cuban food is, but she knew about the restaurant with the robot. And that impression for that next generation, I'm curious, as all of this evolves, how are each of you, or have each of you, connected some sort of agent to your data where as leaders you can sit down and have a natural language conversation with your data set, with your revenues, with your inventory amounts, and ask it that kind of same conversation you'd have with someone that you'd call to the board meeting to report on that area of the business? Thanks.
That's a great question. For the most part, I've gotten my leadership team to get on to like ChatGPT and start putting information in that's still confidential, not too confidential, but like that they can use from leadership decisions. Me personally, I have used it more for having these conversations, right? Before I used to have a marketing agency. Like right now, I have a marketing side of my brain that works pretty well, so I will now have ChatGPT be my marketing assistant, and I come up with where I want to go. These are the keywords I want to use. This is my target market, and it will actually come back with our marketing slogans that we want to come up with. So this is where AI can help you save that cost, and then I use that money and resources into either a marketing assistant that's actually physically at the store for implementation, which, remember, ideas are ideas, but any marketing agency is not going to help you implement those ideas. Make sure that inside where we're going to put the menu boards, what are we going to do from the communication perspective. So I have used that. In fact, I continue to use where we're going, what we're doing, and I put it into AI so that way it can tell me, I ask, what am I missing? As a CEO expert, what is my competition might be thinking? Where do I want to go as my vision leader? We have our goals for our company. We run on EOS. If no one doesn't know what EOS is, I would recommend you look at it. For any one of your companies, called Entrepreneur Operational Systems. We make sure that our team is constantly, every quarter, we are like a public company, but privately with the right heart, I like to say. You know, where we say, we actually make you get in front of the board, in front of everyone, and say, is this the right seat? Do you still want this? And then if you say yes to these 3 questions, do you still have time, capacity to do it? Because people's capacity changes. Then we go over the goals and why they didn't hit their goals and stuff, because the whole company has to see what you're doing, right? And then eventually, all those data points that you're doing, we're tracking you, right? And saying, is this the person for this seat? You know, because sometimes it just no longer is it for you. You have to move you somewhere else. So I think being able to use AI and ChatGPT and have information and bounce back, I think it is important. I think more leaders are doing it. Maybe some don't admit it, but they are doing it because it gives you another way to think potentially. And I think I think what's the right prompt for it?
Great. The gentleman in the back had a question.
Yes, good afternoon. Very nice panel. I appreciate the conversation. My question is related to, if we think about it right now, AI is like a ERP system where you have embedded different functions in this ERP, the enterprise resource planning, like human resources, manufacturing, sales, marketing, different areas, right? Now they're adding AI to this type of systems like NetSuite, okay? But you need something that I think is going to help our organization, that is cultural change. Have you implemented anything in cultural change in your company to present AI?
I'm going to give it to you, George, but I'm just going to say something about that. To me, if you don't have a culture of change, you're going to have difficulty implementing any type of technology. And so how do you create a culture of change? That's why I said EOS or things like that. Because the worst thing people hate the most, but yet appreciate the most, is accountability. It's the hardest thing for anyone to accept. And so if you are constantly changing or coming up with new goals for this quarter or what we're going to implement, and you KPI that and you get in front of people to present and say, where are you? You're already creating a culture of change. And so that's where, from a root perspective, the reason why we're successful at Sergio's is because everyone in my company looks at me and says, I wonder what's going to happen new now, right? I think that's why they look at me as el loco que viene and he's going to come up with something new. Well, McDonald's does the same thing. Starbucks does the same thing. I feel like every time I turn around, Starbucks is doing something new. And I'm always like, they got to have a huge department that's constantly doing this. And so, but their team knows that already because it's an expectation. So I agree with what you're saying. You have to create and have your leadership understand that change is constant, but then we all know that the question is, how does it buy into my behavior? And the only way you change behavior is putting that person in the situation to be able to change, and then they can eventually decide if this is the company for them or not. But when they see successes, they buy into it, they look at you, they say, I believe that in George, he's gonna drive us to the right ship. I just did that for the iced coffees. It came all over TikTok and Only in Date on our Guava Maria cookie, our Maria cookie iced coffees, our Guava cold foam we did, and we've sold more iced coffees than ever before. In fact, most of our restaurants are down in the summer. I don't tell a lot of people, but we're up. And the reason why we're up over 10 points, right? And they say, well, why? I go, because we're creating a vision of change. But guess what? What happened with the change? You think the abuelita in the window is going to change so easily if they're not making more money? Once the results hit, then they buy in, and then now they're like, I don't even want to sell Cuban coffee anymore, they told me. I'd rather just sell the iced coffee because it's a better experience, right?
You're going to lose me as a
Don't do that. Don't get rid of the Cuban coffee. But the point is, the people at the window, now they embrace the change to have an iced coffee, which you couldn't find a really good iced coffee, at least in our restaurants you couldn't. And so, again, embracing change is what you do to ensure that someone says, okay, I'm in. And so that's been our success story in that perspective.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.